Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Mark, we're in the football now, spring football. We'll start with the USFL, obviously making a big splash. They had their draft last night, and we now know all the teams that will be playing in it. It's an 8-team league. We'll take a look at those 8 teams. It's a kind of a blast in the past there. If you remember the old USFL, a lot of those teams look really familiar here. Big picture, do you think this catches on here in and around the South? Spring football. They've tried it. You've seen it different times. The XFL comes next year. The AAF was last year.
Yeah.
What about the USFL?
I think when they first ran the USFL, 83 to 85, there was a lot of success. And I think if they would have continued, they probably would have done pretty well for themselves.
Right.
Baltimore Stallions. You remember who their quarterback was back in the day?
I don't.
A guy called Cliff Stout. Wound up being a backup with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then some of these teams, these are all old school teams that played in the USFL in its original run from 83 to 85. The Michigan Panthers wound up winning the championship in 83, and then Philadelphia won in 84, and then moved to Baltimore in 85, wound up winning then. Jim Mora was the head coach for them. Won 2 USFL championships, never won an NFL playoff game.
Wow, that's insane. And this league will obviously have some of the newer flavor as well, too, because you have guys like Kevin Sumlin, guys like Skip Holtz, and the guy like Herschel Walker, kind of a blast from the past sort of thing where it lets you know that some of these guys can be maybe the edge, maybe bottom of the roster, very bottom of the roster, maybe practice team NFL guys. And it's one of those things where I think this would be great for Alabama because Alabamians will get a chance to go to Protective Stadium and kind of get a blast, like you said, blast from the past and have something to do if you're not a huge basketball fan.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of these guys, they can make their start here. But a lot of guys in USFL, Doug Flutie got his start there, okay? Herschel Walker ran for 2,000 yards in the USFL. But again, 18 games in the USFL. The Jersey Generals, before Donald Trump bought them, this tycoon, oil tycoon in Oklahoma had him, spent a lot of money on. They got Brian Sipe, one of the better NFL quarterbacks, 1980 NFL MVP, to come over from Cleveland to play for the New Jersey Generals. You had Rozier, Mike Rozier, Heisman Trophy winner, being drafted by the Pittsburgh Maulers. A lot of big-name players wind up going from the NFL. Jerry Holmes, who was a starting quarterback for the Jets, wind up going over and playing in the USFL. A lot of guys had careers. Reggie White got his start in the USFL. So a lot of Hall of Famers, very good player. Kelvin Bryant, another one, one of the better dual running backs, receiving backs in the USFL and in the NFL. So a lot of these guys wind up having good NFL careers. JoJo Townsend, another one. So I think that if they get their start here, they get the confidence, they get to play against other professionals in an environment where a lot is expected for them, and we'll see. Can they compete with the NFL? I don't know. I think they got to make a deal with the NFL at some point to where they're not going over and having the same problems which they eventually did, which is players leaving the NFL and going and playing for that league. That's eventually what caused the lawsuit and Donald Trump wanting to have them play in the fall, figuring only the big boys played in the fall. That was one of his big mistakes. I don't think that. If the ESPN did the documentary 30 for 30 on that, spring football would have been around for a little while. People wanted to see it. I don't think he was right in that sense. But he wanted to bring it to the fall, and if he would have brought it to the fall, it would have lost all of the things that gave it, made it special to fans. And it wouldn't have been able to compete with the NFL. They wound up winning the lawsuit by saying that the NFL did have a monopoly, but the jury said that Trump shouldn't be rewarded any financial reward, which he wasn't. And that's why the USFL had to fold.
Exactly. Well, spring forward to 2021, we had the draft yesterday over in Birmingham, and a couple of guys that you might remember. Shea Patterson played for Michigan. He's actually going to play for Michigan on that next level as well. And the season will run. Every team plays 5 games. 8 teams play 5 games. 43 games overall. There's going to be 2 playoff games and a championship game. That's kind of the format. The playoffs and the championship will actually be played at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium over in Canton, Ohio as well.
But here's the thing. They mentioned that they're the team names. But we just don't know what kind of affiliation they have with the city. Whether they're just doing it for the old school thing and to get the names. But like you said, all the games will be here in Alabama. So why does it give them any significance to be the Michigan Panthers or the New Jersey Generals if they're not going to be playing any
in those communities?
Yeah, in their community. So who knows? It'll be interesting to see.
Exactly. So here are the quarterbacks, just to make you aware of those. All drafted in the first round. They went quarterbacks in the first round, defensive ends in the second through fourth. You could look up the actual draft lineup. Not a lot of recognizable names. They didn't play at huge colleges outside of those top two. Meanwhile, the players with Birmingham tie or Alabama ties as well, both on the high school level and on the college level. I remember covering Trey Elston. He played his high school football down the road here from our studios over at Oxford High School. He went in the 9th round to the New Jersey Generals. Obviously, another cornerback from Alabama, Bradley Slive as well. Lots of in-town connections from people who maybe watch them play at Auburn, Alabama, Stanford in high school that can watch them play on the next level as well.
It'll bring out a lot of people that they know. I think it'll be great for the local fans. It's funny because you mentioned the Houston Gamblers. Their quarterback was a guy who played in 4 Super Bowls, Jim Kelly.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. So there were a lot of big names. Steve Young got to start with the LA Express.
Exactly.
So a lot of big names that were quarterbacks in the USFL. Bobby Hebert with the Michigan Panthers won a championship with them, wound up having a good career with the Saints. So you can turn it into a good career.
Exactly. All right, speaking of good careers, we'll go to the NFL. We have lots of players and quarterbacks with good careers. Lots of quarterback questions here in this offseason. Of the quarterbacks that played last year, lots of talk around these guys. Do you see any major moves? We know Jimmy Garoppolo's going to probably find a new team. There's been talk about whether it's Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis Winston. What are the moves you're expecting?
Hey, Carson Wentz, 27 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions, one of the better ratings of the year. But again, didn't play well in the final 2 games against the Raiders and against the Jaguars, which cost them playoff spot. Aaron Rodgers, I mean, the guy's a Hall of Famer, one of the best quarterbacks ever, but he doesn't have the postseason resume. Not even close to a Peyton Manning even or Tom Brady, definitely. Garoppolo, I don't get it. Exactly. All the guy does is win. He turned the franchise around. The 1 year he didn't play, they were awful, and they want to get rid of him. The players seem to like him. His teammates, I don't understand. Baker Mayfield at one point was the savior for Cleveland. I still think has some talent. Maybe needs to grow a little more into his role because some guys need a little more to mature. Seems like he has all the skills, but there's just something not there. I'm not sure what it was. You might be able to develop that or not. And the other guys, Darnold, Bridgewater, Winston, and Tua, I think Tua still has a career in the NFL, but he needs to stay healthy.
Exactly. And final thing of the guys going into their second year, guys that played their rookie year, Trey Lance didn't play very much, but which of these guys do you expect maybe to make that second year bounce?
Zach Wilson, absolutely.
You're not
because he plays with
Jet. Not picking with your heart there at all.
Dude, all these guys got a lot to prove.
Yeah, they certainly do. I think Mac Jones has a nice leg up. Based on the team that he's around. And I think Trevor Lawrence got a new coach, which I think really helps
And he's
him.
talented. And everybody thought he was going to be the savior, so we'll see.
Right, and he's got Doug Peterson there and hopefully none of the chaos that he had last year. Well, that is it for that segment. Coming up in our final segment, we'll pass along some high school basketball scores, and we will celebrate Black History Month. That's coming up next.
So long.